Alright guys, before we jump into installing Cisco Modeling Labs, let's make sure we have everything ready to go. Trust me, getting these things sorted beforehand will save you a ton of headaches later. So here's what you need to check before installing CML. CML is a virtualized network lab, so your computer needs some decent specs. And if you are running a small lab, like maybe for a CCNA practice, just a 16 gig of RAM and a 4 core processor should be fine. But if you're running a bigger setup, you will want at least 32 gig of RAM and 8 CPUs. And if you're going all out with an enterprise level of lab, uh, I would highly recommend to opt for 64 gig of RAM with 16 cores. That should be an ideal to cover most of your scenarios. This is a big one since CML runs as a virtual machine, so your computer must support virtualization. That means you need an Intel VTX, and if you're on Intel CPU or AMD V, which is basically for the AMD based CPUs, which you can go into your BIOS or the UEFI settings and just make sure that this virtualized CPU option is turned on. Now, CML doesn't run directly on Windows or Mac OS. You will need a hypervisor. The best options are VMware Workstation Pro or for Windows or Linux-based machines, VMware Fusion for Mac, and ESX, which I'll be using in my lab for demonstration purposes. Now, before installing, you need to download the CML, OVA or ISO version. Both are available on Cisco's official website. Now, this isn't free, so you will need a valid Cisco CML, either a personal, enterprise, or academic license to make the most out of it. Now, once you have got that, keep your license key handy. So, because we would need that license to activate your CML instance. And finally, if you want CML to talk to real devices like your home lab or end of the VM, you will need to configure a bridge network. Otherwise, if you're just using it for internal testing, the default settings should work fine. Now, with that, let's get into the lab. All right, so this one is my E6 server, which as you can see, it's basically installed on a C220 M4 all M4L rack mount server. It has pretty decent uh, memory and CPUs in it, so that the specification shouldn't be a problem for my server. Now, before we install, if you can go to your software.cisco.com, from where you would need to download the Cisco CML. OVA package is what I'll be using to install my CML instance in my lab. So for that, as you can see, we have a package of OVA called, so this one is the OVA package, and this one is the ISO. Uh, I'm sorry, not this one. The first one. This one is the ISO, and this one is the OVA version. So I have downloaded this OVA version right over here. So this is my CML OVA, and using this, I'll be installing the lab in my ASIC server. So creating a virtual machine, deploying a virtual machine using OVA. I'll simply name it CML version 2.8 and find my OVA in the downloads, which should be here, and CML, there you go. When you click next and next, I'm choosing whichever storage I want to use, so there is nothing specific. Just keeping it default public network, I'll choose it to VM network, which is just basically my home Wi-Fi network, where I'll be using the DHCP version to auto assign an IP from my existing Wi-Fi network so I can access the CML instance over my local system. So these are just the default settings which are inbuilt inside the OVA, and as soon as you try to deploy an OVA, it's the ESX reads the default configurations from your OVA file, and it just sets it up. So you just have to click finish, and then it will just do on the job in its backend. It will upload the OVA disk, start installing it, and once this has done, then I'll show you the next steps. For now, I'll just pause the video for saving some time. Alright, the OVA has been uploaded and imported inside ESX. Let's see now, because we chose the option for power on VM once the installation is done, so it's just doing the installation and it will power it on. So as you can see, it's getting powered on, and when I click on the console, I just choose so it auto choose the right option which it needs to boot from. And let's just wait for the prompts to show up. So we'll just follow the prompts, and I'll keep explaining you what each of those mean as we get it through. This shouldn't take long. It will give you some pop-ups to set up the network type, which I'll be choosing DHCP as I mentioned earlier, and then it will be asking for a couple of admins and the passwords that we need to set to access the GUI. Let's click on continue. You got to accept that. Another option. Welcome to CML first deployment configuration process. Alright, so CML basically could be installed as a standalone setup or a cluster. So I'll be setting up it as a standalone system, which will be a single unit, and I'll be accessing it directly. So there's no clustering required. That's gonna be my host name. Now about this DVD ISO strip. We will talk about this later. Just keep this screen in mind, and I'll explain you what this means. I'm just gonna go continue anyway. And so when we install CML, it gives us an option for uh, two types of usernames. One is for the system administration, and one is for our regular CML labs. So the CML labs is where we do actual labbing. And the one that we see on the screen, this is actually for the system user, which is used for the configuring the username that will be used for all the backend setups for CML Labs. So anything that we need to do at the backend operations for CML Labs, they'll be using the system admin username, which you see on the screen right now. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna keep it admin, and I'll be keeping the same username and password for both system admin and my CML labs. Otherwise, most commonly, it's just like, to differentiate, we use sysadmin, which denotes that you're using sysadmin for system admin purpose of CML, and a regular admin as regular admin. But just for simplicity's sake, and because I have a really poor memory, so I just keep things simple. So inputting my password there. All right, continue. Yep, I understand. Now this one is the username for the CML lab, which is also called the CML controller. And this CML controller or CML lab is actually the GUI where we will be actually adding the nodes and preparing the labs and doing the real stuff what CML is supposed to do. So keeping the same password for this one as well, keeping in mind my lack of memory retention. Continue. Strong. Yep. I'm gonna set the network setting to get an IP through my Wi-Fi router, which I'll keep it to DHCP. It's just summarizing with all the settings that we have done. Confirm. Now let it set it up, all of the configurations we have provided. And while it's happening, it shouldn't take long. Uh, After this, we'll be able to access the CML GUI right away. All right, it's on its final phases. So as you can see, I've got an IP of 192.168.20.15, 192.168.20.15. I'm going to accept the risk. Now this is the login screen for my CML controller. And again, which I use the same username and password. Just gonna save it. Dismiss. Now this is where it shows, the current CPU memory and disk storages, basically a regular system health. And then the other GUI that I was mentioning, the system admin, that is what, how you can access that is you use the same URL with specific port number of 1990, and you will be able to log in into the system admin portal, which looks a little bit different to our regular CML lab UI. All right, so I'm able to log in all here. That's all good. Now, once we have set it up, we can click on the tools, the node and the image definitions. Now, as you can see, we don't see any of our the Cisco devices that CML by default supports and which can be imported here. So there are many ways to import it. The easiest way to do it is to download the relevant ISO files from the Cisco website itself. Now, in the later versions of Cisco CMLs, they have introduced supplemental ISO, which is mainly suitable for having all the SD-WAN, VIPTela related nodes, the edge controller, and all those nodes that are relevant for SD-WAN. And then there is a regular FCS ISO, which incorporates your the uh, CSRs, IOs, XEs, Nexus 9Ks, ASAs, all those images are kind of there. So these are the two ISOs which I'll be importing in my CML lab. So as soon as I'm able to do that, I'll be able to see all my nodes over here. Now, how to do that? Let's download these ISOs first, which I have got them already downloaded here. So as you can see, RefPlat, the supplemental one, which is for SD-WAN nodes, and the RefPlat FCS ones, which are for the regular networking devices and the firewall devices. Now I will be uploading these ISOs in my local storage of ESX host, which as you can see in one of those storages, I think DS1 is the one. Yep. So you see both the ISOs are placed in my local storage of the ESX. Now I'll click on the CML virtual machine and hot add the ISOs one at a time. So I'm gonna add the data server ISO. It will show me the link. I'll be adding the regular FCS in my list first. Connected power on, connect. Now save it. Now as you can see, it has mapped the ISO to CML. So basically the CML VM should be able to see the contents of this particular ISO version. Now when we have to import all these images, the CML system admin portal is where we need to go. So just refreshing the page. You see this option, the second option, copy reflat ISO. You click on that and it should auto detect the ISO that we have mapped. Found CD-ROM, hashtag. Now this one is, so this has started to copy the all the contents which are present inside that ISO, which will eventually start showing all your the nodes that we are trying to add over here. Now, while the CML is, the ISOs are getting copied, the CML services are auto restarted and they are paused. So because of that, CML controller services are being under maintenance. So we won't be able to open the CML web GUI right now. So once this one is done, it will probably go through a reboot of a virtual machine. And once that, I'll quickly show, quickly give the services a look if all the services are healthy, and then we can check the CML controller again. So as of now, all the services look enabled and running fine. This one shouldn't take long. Let's wait together. All right, so that copying is completed and it has ejected the ISO that we mapped. Now it's gonna start the CML services. Let's just quickly check the CML service, CML controller. This one, it's running and enabled. All right, going back, refreshing our page, logging back in. Now you can see all the images here. The ASA, CAT 8K, CSR, IOL, the virtual one, some servers, some desktops, XRV 9000, WAN emulator, your Nexus 9K, and the IOL images. Everything is here. Now, about the other ISO that I was talking about for the SD-WAN components, I'll go back to my CML VM, edit, and now this time I'm gonna map the FCS supplement image, which basically is for SD-WAN related objects. And again, going back to my CML sysadmin page, I'll go at the top, copy the ISO, copy it. It has detected the image, and it's gonna start copying the SD-WAN nodes to my CML. Giving it a quick pause before it completes. I'll be right back. Alright, so after approximately 120 seconds, all the SD-WAN nodes images are also copied. It's gonna start the CML services again. Going back to my CML lab, refresh the page. It's getting bad gateway, so I think the services are still starting. I'll just give services a quick look. The controller is running. It's fine. Just refreshing the page again. Logging back in. And now you can see we see the SD-WAN add edge, the virtual edge, the validator, manager, and the controller. So all the SD-WAN nodes are over here. Now if you go back to my dashboard and you click on add, this is how you add a lab. and just exit the demo. From here you can add a node, so whatever nodes are available in our lab, they can be added. Just drag and drop and click the start. Now you might notice at this point there is a high system load. So basically there is a high disk usage for my server. So the node that I started to turn on, it's put on idle state. Now, if you remember, we used the default settings of the CML, which kind of gave us, auto-configured a 32 GB of storage only. Now, after copying all those images in our CML lab, the disk usage has increased to 96.32%. Now, we want to add additional disk to that. How do we do that? So to do that, we can hot add a hard drive, a hard disk to our CSL virtual machine, which if we go and edit it again, add a hard disk, a new hard disk, and I'm just gonna do it maybe 150 GB. That's actually more than enough, but yeah, it doesn't hurt. Once I have added this, I go back to my CML sysadmin. Again, this is because this work that we are performing is not related to the lab, but it's related to backend stuff. So again, we have to do do all these things through the system admin portal. Going to the storage. Now you can see the SDA, which is the VMware virtual disk. Now the first three ones, they are basically the boot partitions, which where actually your actual CML lab is installed. So uh, these are not the ones that we can alter or rectify or shrink or grow the storage. The other storages, the virtual group 00, these are the ones where we can actually do the addition of the storage in case we want to add more storages. And it's detecting some CD-ROM drive. Now I need to expand the storage for the VG0. So as you can see, the one which is the variable one, that's where all the files are stored. All right, so the hard drive, the hard disk that I initially added, it was not showing up under the storage tab. So as you can see, this SDB, the unformatted data of 161 GB, that is one I have added. This was not showing up, so just remember when you add a hard disk to your CML lab, you might need to reboot the VM once. So simply log into console with your system admin user details and click on reboot and hit enter. Once it reboots, it reads the new added storage, and then you should be able to set it up. Now, keeping this as it is, and if I go to this LB variable file, I can go to this original volume group, and I can add a physical group, the physical volume, to this particular volume group, which the unformatted one is showing up here. Now, once I add it, I can go back to this one, the virtual, the variable one, which is almost full memory, full disk. I simply click on grow, and it gives me an option of how much available volume you want to increase it to. So I just gonna utilize all of it, and when you grow, you will see, going back to your CML lab, your disk utilization would be uh, way cleaner than it's required. Now when I start the node, it should start right away, and I can again, doing a right click, I can go into console, open console, and you will see the node will start. Very good. Now, with that, you know, I wish all the best to you with all the learning, and I hope this particular video was helpful for you because of the mostly common challenges around how to add nodes to your CML lab and how to fix the high disk utilization. After this video, we'll work on I'll be preparing more videos where we will be talking about how you can add some custom images outside the Cisco regular images that we have simply imported. So there are many other QCOW based images that can be imported and how to set it up. We'll look into that in the next videos. For now, I hope you liked it and all the best.